Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think Kishore, we have Kishore, and I think Rakesh is on his way. So he should hopefully be joining us in the next 5 to 10 minutes. We've got here a reasonably eclectic, mix of panelists. On the extreme right, I have Vamesh, who's actually earned his spurs in investing. He started investing in 1998. And obviously, when you invested in 1998 in India, you were investing in brick and mortar retail. So that is what he's earned his spurs in. Then we have Kishore, who's actually built some of the best malls in India, and the in-orbit malls, one of the most successful ones in Mumbai, and of course now across the country. So he houses a lot of physical retailers. We have Ganesh, who was a colleague of mine at Reliance Retail, and then, if I were to use the word turncoat, went to the other side of the fence and joined up with Myntra, part of that founding team, and heads Myntra. We have Rohit, who's right in the beginning, confessed that what is my role in this panel. I have nothing to do with either side, so please don't get me involved in any squabbles. So I said, come along, we need some more people to fill up the stage. So he's here as part of, and I told him he's got a vested interest in this entire thing, because if some of the physical retailers were not to survive till 2020, then he might not have too many virtuous malls around. So I said, please get involved. You've got some stake in the business. Rakesh will join us, and Rakesh, of course, like Kishore yesterday, would be hopefully a proponent of physical retail. So this is what it is. The session is all about retail valuations, retail and retail valuations. And I think, I kind of got chosen for this because I've spent a lot of time in setting up retail businesses, and then in some senses I've moved one level higher in terms of trying to understand the economics behind retail businesses. So in that sense of the word, I think they decided to pull me in and say that, why didn't you chair it, because you probably have a good visibility of both sides of the business. Yesterday morning, I think we had an interesting session, the opening session where we had 3 physical retailers, Krish, Kishore, and Ram, and we had the gentleman from Google, and we had Nagesh moderating. But I think if you were to take some learnings out of that early session, the learnings were that you will have to reach the consumer or the customer whichever way. Some people have been doing it traditionally using physical stores, and some newcomers have been doing it using digital stores. But in both the cases, we are finally reaching the consumer. The other part, I think, that we heard yesterday, which Abhik mentioned in his opening presentation, is that the market will grow and continue to grow rapidly, given the larger macro factors which augur well as far as the Indian consumption story goes. And to that extent, if you're looking at a market of $600 billion today, and if you're expecting that market to move to a level of about $900 billion by 2020, don't be surprised by it, the market will grow. So I think that's what he said. And the only point that he made at the end is, who will share in that growth, we don't know, but that will depend on how well different channels play out. We just heard, prior to this session, somebody talking about embracing both physical and digital retail. And I think when you look at this whole category of retail, it is about making sure that you get products and services to the customer. And if you believe that you're in the business of moving products and services from suppliers to customers, and you have an intermediary role to play in that whole way, then you've got to figure out who your customer is, where are they resident, and which is the best way to be able to move products and services to customers. We've seen how the market has evolved around us in Asia. So forget about advanced economies like the United States or Europe and looking at the statistics out there. But we can look at markets which have gone maybe 5-8 years ahead of us, like China, We can look at markets which are very similar to us, which are neighboring us like Thailand or Malaysia or Indonesia for that matter. And what we are seeing in all of those markets is that e-tail has begun to make a presence, a significant presence. If you look at a market like China, there have been very unique ways in which the model has evolved in each of these markets. So somewhere it's, they've pioneered cash on delivery, somewhere they've pioneered pickup points, but in some way, there have been ways in which the market has evolved, whether it's in terms of fulfillment or also if it is in terms of actually communicating or reaching the customer. So in India, we today have a model which, in some senses, if you look at e-tail model is about a mix of what has happened in advanced economies, what's happened in let's say, Asian economies, and also what's happening in physical retail. So it's a mix of all of that is what's happening on e-tail. If you look at physical retail, we've also evolved over time. We've looked at large stores, small stores, large assortments, small assortments, category-specific stores, department stores, food stores, and, different companies have experimented with different categories, different formats, different business models, and all of them have learned, and finally it's translated into the way they are currently running their businesses. So the unique thing about India is that when you look at what we might define as modern retail in India, which is the physical retail, is still a single-digit number, probably 9-10% of the total. So what you're talking about is a market which is currently about $50 to $60 billion in terms of size, which is modern retail, of the total $600 billion total retail market. If you look at e-tail, which is just the e-tail of products and leave aside services like financial services or travel and stuff like that, that is estimated to be anywhere between about $4 to $6 billion at this point of time. 6 is what my colleague on the panel, Ganesh, indicates, and growing quite rapidly. And I think that's the other part of it. When we looked at BCG study yesterday, we talked about a total market of approximately $900 billion, estimated by 2020. Ganesh tells me that the e-tail market is likely to become about $100 billion by the year 2020, which makes it roughly 16% of the total retail market. If you ask all of the large modern retail players like the Aditya Birla Group, the Tatas, Reliance, Walmart, and ask them, what do you think your 5-year plans are going to be? A lot of them will also talk about the fact that they expect that the modern retail market will also be roughly in the region of about $100, $120 billion in 5 years' time. So what you can see from here is that there is a race, in some senses of the word, between e-tail and modern retail to grab a share of the customer's wallet in a market which is growing, and certainly there will be some casualties on the wayside. The second point, I think, which a lot of us actually will get obsessed with during the course of this discussion will be in terms of how do we value these businesses. Now, if you look at mature markets, and if you look at, say, for example, a large retail player in the United States, and look at a lot of the large retail players in the United States, and then try and figure out what is their market valuation, what you do discover is that their market valuation, which are public markets, are classically 0.6, 0.7, if you're lucky, 0.8. If you're a pure play, hypermarket kind of player. If you're a brand-led retail player, like say a Gap or somebody else like that, it will certainly be a little better than that. Whereas when you look at, let's say, an e-tail player in India, and even if you were to look at, say, the last round of funding raised by one of the leading e-tailers in India, it seemingly is about 4 times top line, as opposed to in a mature market where it's 0.6, here it's roughly about 4 times top line for a leading e-tail player. Even if you were to look at a physical retail player or modern retail player in India, roughly about 1 to 1.2, 1.3 times is the kind of valuation that you can see of some of the transactions that have occurred in the past or some of the publicly listed companies. So the whole point here is that, are there any principles of valuation when you actually are in the same business? You actually are in the business of serving customers, providing them with products and services. Yet on the other hand, the way different players get valued is very different. So what we're trying to do here is hopefully to be able to understand, are there some reasons why some people get valued much higher than others, why some channels actually get valued more generously than others. And what I'd like to do is to start off with Nimesh. I think he comes with a lot of understanding of this market coming in from venture capital space. And I'm sure he'd be able to kind of lend some understanding to all of us here in terms of how do people actually see valuations in the e-tail space, or let's say in the e-commerce space. And maybe some examples from China would be useful. So Nimesh, to you.
Yeah, thanks. One of the things, like, I consider myself a bit of a dinosaur because I had a tough time graduating from conventional retail way back in '99 when I invested in pantaloons to all the way now when we are looking at e-tail and e-commerce businesses. But I think if I were to step back from that and for a moment say that as investors, what are we looking for? We are looking for growth, we are looking for scalability, we are looking for a good quality management team, and the ability to potentially deliver to the sort of promised land in a period of 7 to 10 years in terms of the valuation and exits that we would want to seek from these businesses. And today, if I were to see the e-tail space, not today, maybe I would say this is something that we sort of read out nearly 1.5 years back, is the fact that it's a perfect storm. When you look at the overall macro numbers, vis-a-vis the growth numbers on the cellular phone side, the access device side, when you look at the tipping point with regard to the manner in which China, as I was telling earlier in our internal conversation, that China, we are talking of like 2008 was merely 1% of e-tail penetration. From 2008 to 2014, it has grown 70% YOY. India is at 0.6, 0.7%. Will it necessarily follow that trajectory? Answer is yes, because again, it reminds me of the cellular phone investments that we did way back in 98, 99, 2000 era, when huge number of statistics were mirroring the way China was looking at. So that is one macro data point which sort of drives a lot of investors to say that, do we know who's going to win? Answer is no. And therefore, you saw the first wave of horizontal investing, horizontal spaces being captured by investors, be it Myntra, be it Snapdeal, be it Flipkart, etc. And a lot of that money that has been invested has been fueled to principally drive towards the larger valuation game and exit plans that we will be seeing. Will it happen in 3 to 5 years? Answer is no. I think we are very clearly creating, it's like saying that we are creating a new expressway. We are expecting people to transition from the traditional retail to the expressway in terms of building business. And this is like an like in my mind, I consider this as an infrastructure business. And in a way, if I have the ability to stay the course, then I do see the ability to make a fair amount of return. Again, some more statistics. If I could say that the market cap of internet companies in India expected to touch around 160 billion. Now the question that I ask, a lot of people are saying that, why have you given this guy a $500 million valuation? Why have you given this guy a $1 billion valuation? But in the larger scheme of things that one is trying to look at here as an investor, is the fact that, do I see this company potentially out of that once, even if it is not 170 billion, if it's $100 billion, do I see my company, whom I'm betting on, going and doing at least a $5 billion valuation? Then for them, if I'm paying a $1 billion valuation, I'm trying to justify it in my head. Do I know sitting where I'm today that yes, this is going to be a sure shot? Answer is no, which is why we as investors end up taking multiple bets. And therefore, ultimately, if you look at it, investing as a process is still a game of averages. We will lose some, we will win some. But the question is that if you're on the winning side, then to that extent, you'll still be ahead. And I think that's the way we are tending to process, at times, the data points with regard to saying, okay, do I give it, like another question, there's no profits. How do we value this business? But the fact of the matter is, again, that is the process of evolution. Today, apart from sales, we have nothing else to measure the company against. And therefore, there is this whole thing about saying, enterprise value to sales or that kind of a metric. Over a period of time, profits will kick in. It will get valued based on EV EBITDAs and PE multiples. But that is a process. That's a time or evolution this business will take.
Okay.
And therefore...
Vamish, let me just interrupt you there. You know, at about 2005 to 2007, there were a large number of modern retail players who came into the market.
Correct.
You know, including Reliance. And a lot of them actually built their business models on exactly what you're just saying, which is that growing Indian retail market, small modern retail penetration, great opportunity to be able to get to significant growths as well as significant top lines. And as long as you make your business plan, the business plan automatically gets a valuation. The moment you put up your first store, that valuation doubles. And the moment you build some scale, then it will be significantly higher valuations. And on that basis, a lot of them started building businesses. People like Kishore in those days talked about the fact that there are so many modern retailers coming into this market. There will be a huge requirement for retail space. And hence, we must actually start getting into acquiring large parcels of land in order to be able to build malls so that these stores can actually, find a place to be present. And we know that over the last 7-8 years, the reality has